Welcome to Sky Women. I'm your host, Dr. Carolyn Moyers, a wife, mom, and board-certified OB-GYN. This is a place to educate, empower, and inspire. Join us each week as we share the power of women's stories. Real women, real stories, real inspiration. Put on your stretchy pants. Let's get going. Welcome, Sky community. Welcome to another episode. We're so excited that you're here today. We are talking about such an important topic. I have with me Dr. Gail Miller. She's a life coach and maternal-fetal medicine physician whose career has been about helping women. She founded the Path Onward Life Coaching for empowering women who are childless not by choice, so that they feel worthy, living fulfilling lives and managing those triggers that come out throughout the lifespan whenever you don't have children and your friends are having children or grandbabies, and it continues to show up in life. So welcome, Dr. Miller. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you giving this topic some airtime, if you will.
Absolutely, because this infertility is a huge trigger for women, right? Pregnancy loss. This is something that follows you for a lifetime. And if you never achieved pregnancy, infertility didn't work, or for whatever reason, you missed out on that life partner in your window of fertility, right? It continues to show up in life as we age.
Yes, exactly.
So would you share with the audience why this is such an important, kind of what led you to this life coaching?
Sure. Yeah. So what led this to me was my own journey as a woman who is childless, not by choice. And just to give you a little bit of background, I had my life, or this path, kind of took two roads, if you will. So when I was younger, I had always imagined I was going to have children, and I had it all truly planned out in detail. And as I, was getting older and realizing, okay, I'm not meeting the perfect partner, I decided, okay, maybe I'll be a single mom. And then I when I was younger, I let some personal things get in the way, like a boss who at the time would have fired me for being a single mom, and a parent who would have mourned me like I was dead. So, when I was going through that, I didn't have the confidence in myself to say, wait, this isn't okay, and I don't need any of you. So I kind of let those things get in my way.
Which is so common for women, don't you think? Like we are so busy pleasing everybody else instead of making those decisions that are right for us and our knowing.
Exactly. And so over time, it was like, okay, I've accepted I'm going to be childless. And I thought I had accepted it. I did meet, the right person later in life. He had already had 3 kids. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I already knew I had fertility issues. So
even if you met somebody, you were anticipating the challenge.
Yeah. Right. And even with when I did first consider single motherhood, knowing I had fertility challenges, I wanted to investigate this. Well, what life is, especially in the past where there was no focus on, work-life balance. I couldn't even find time for a single appointment. And then I was thinking, okay, if I can't get in for just a single appointment, what am I going to do when I need IVF? And, and then I just added all of that up, and it's like, I can't do this. So later in life, met the right person. He already had 3 children. He'd already done the terrible twos, the terrible teens, all that. And my fertility issues did not get any better. So I realized, I had to accept this, except I didn't. I was grieving. I was incredibly sad. And that became the focus of my life. And I had something happen one day that made me realize you need to find the old happiness you had. And so that's when I went on this journey to feel whole again, to feel like myself again, to realize, no, I wasn't going to become a mom, but that doesn't make me less than. and I have a wonderful life, and I have to learn to live
Be
with the
whole without,
wonderfulness. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
instead of feeling the lack of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I worked with a therapist, I worked with a coach, both wonderful. Neither one was childless. And both said, I don't know what you're going through. And
Mhm.
as I tried to find someone myself who, I wanted someone who really could understand. Of course, we all have our different circumstances that lead to
Sure.
this, but someone who understands what it feels like to never be able to go home with a baby. And so then I'm looking like there's really not a lot out there in terms of therapists or coaches who are childless, not by choice, at least at that time. And that's when I decided this is what I need to do. I
Yeah.
loved my life coaching. It helped me in so many other ways.
Right.
And so I decided I need to become a life coach and specifically work with women who are childless, not by choice.
Yeah.
So I did, I became certified and started researching because, of course, the certification is general. And
Right.
so I needed to make sure I understood not just my own viewpoint, but what this, the emotions and all of that behind this that are not just my own. So
Right.
yes. So I became a life coach and created this program for women who are childless, not by choice, whatever the reason. If it's you've aged out, if it
Right.
is because you went through unsuccessful fertility treatments, or you decided not to try because of whatever your circumstances. I mean, there's literally dozens and dozens of reasons why someone could be
Dozens. Right.
childless when they
Right.
don't want to be.
Right.
So that's my story. And that
Yeah.
is, I'm passionate about helping other women like me get to this point where you're like, I can love my life and still mourn the loss of that dream of motherhood.
Sure. Sure. Because you may have been dreaming that since you were 8 years old, since you were a little
Yeah.
girl. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I
Since
think
I
that you
played with
bring,
dolls. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. So I think that you bring up a really important point is that, we all need support and when we're going through these trials and it's so easy to feel alone, to
yeah.
feel like you're the only one and to feel singled out at holidays and family events, right? Because you don't have a child and everybody wants to ask those imposing questions of when are you going to have a baby or why haven't you had a baby yet? And have you met somebody, right? Like I'm sure
Yeah.
you've experienced all of that.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's the thing that always really surprises me with the questions is there is no more personal decision that someone could make.
Mhm.
And so there are people who openly talk about it. I don't have a problem with that. But understand that not everyone wants to talk about this very, very personal
Yeah.
decision. And so, yes, you get asked all these questions about when are you going to have a child or why didn't you have children? People make assumptions that, well, you don't have children, so you must be selfish. Well, there are women who choose not to because, and there's nothing selfish about that. It
Mhm.
is their personal decision.
Mhm.
And it's not personal, it's not selfish to not have a child when you can't have one. I mean, people just also always assume that, well, of course, you can always get pregnant. Well, no,
Not
even
everybody.
IVF.
Yeah.
Yes, egg freezing isn't always successful. IVF isn't always successful. But
Right.
people make this assumption that if you don't have a child, even if you wanted one, you're selfish or you didn't do enough or you gave up. People,
Which leaves women feeling that they're broken.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
There was someone who told the story of, no, she went through IVF with her first child, got pregnant, had a child, wanted a second, and had now been going through it for 3 years. I think it was several years.
Yeah.
Went to a doctor's appointment, and which was not related to reproductive health at all. there wasn't medications being prescribed that would affect a pregnancy, no x-rays being, and the doctor decided to ask about, when are you going to have another child? And said, I've gone through IVF now for several years. We've stopped at this point. And the doctor said, you know what? I have a friend who's been going through IVF for 10 years now. You're just at the beginning. Don't give up. It's like, okay, there is so much pain and trauma that goes into this situation. And there's physical, emotional, financial consequences to it. And to tell someone, essentially, this woman was told she's not doing enough, keep going.
Yeah, it's a marathon. Just keep going.
Yes. And so think of that, like imagine then also now you have someone who has no children and they're also told the same thing. Or like I've been, when Jennifer Aniston came out with an interview with her and she talked about she wished she knew about egg freezing. Well, in my case, egg freezing was really at the very beginning when, and it was not an option really. And I did have a couple people say to me, don't you wish you had done that? And it's like, okay, first of all, you don't know what you're talking about. It really was not an option when I was in my 30s, 20s and 30s. And secondly, you're now telling someone who doesn't have a child, who dearly wants one, don't you wish you had done something more? Like do you not understand that just brings up more pain? So I just really think about what you're saying to someone before you're saying it, even if I'm sure it was unintentional. They wanted to feel like they were helping in some way, but really think about it. Put yourself in that person's shoes and think about what you're going to say.
Question then, what would you advise somebody on the other side who might be wanting to talk to somebody about their plans for a family? What would you recommend would be the more appropriate way to broach that subject, or the more kind, considerate, compassionate way to approach that subject, or just don't say anything at all?
Or don't say anything at all, follow their lead. Or if you feel like maybe this is someone who wants to talk about it, but they don't know how to get this started, or they don't know I'm willing to listen, then, you can always, actually what I suggest is if it's someone you're going to be seeing later on, if you really want to know, I would text them, because getting a text in private gives you the opportunity to if it's a trigger, it gives you the opportunity to deal with that trigger and be able to answer when you feel comfortable. But I would
not on the spot at dinner in front of 15 people. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I would put it as, is this something you want to talk about? I'm open to listening. If not, I understand. Like really put yourself in their shoes and realize they may not want to talk about this. Maybe they do, and they need to know you're open to listening. But if they are, then really just listen. Don't give judgment. And most of the time, people don't want suggestions because they've already researched this. And what works for your friend may not work for them, and maybe they've already tried it. So again, if you feel like you have information for them that may be helpful, I would suggest to get a text. Hey, I have some information, my friend went through X, Y, and Z. Maybe that's helpful for you. Do you want me to talk to you about it? Again, text so that it's, a time where they can recover if this is a trigger. Most of the time, though, I would say leave it at leave it alone. Leave it alone. On the other hand, if someone does ask, you're in a social situation and someone asks, why don't you have children? Or do you have children? And you can see this brings up discomfort. Like really just kind of try to change the subject for this person.
Redirect the conversation.
Redirect the conversation. But also I'm at a point now where people will not so much ask, like I ran into someone who I hadn't seen in a long time. He knew I was childless. He didn't know it was not by choice. And he asked me, what are you doing these days? I said, I'm a life coach. He assumed I was doing life coaching burnout for physicians. And I said, no, I'm a life coach for women who are childless, not by choice. And I could see his discomfort immediately because this topic makes people uncomfortable. So when it comes up in this way, like in the past, I would have been like, oh, scrambling to like cover it up,
ease his discomfort.
Right. Easy. And now it's like, no, there's nothing abnormal about this. There's nothing wrong with this. This is just my life experience. And so over time, like he finally recovered. I could see, like you could feel the sense of discomfort.
Yeah.
And so I would say if someone says to you, when you ask, do you have children? And they say no, watch for your own reaction. Like don't, even if you don't say anything, that judgment, that discomfort comes through loud and clear.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So I love that you've created this space to support women because it can be a very lonely circumstance. I think that's true for infertility. And then if you're past the window of, fertility treatments, et cetera, I think that that's really hard. And, some people may have even tried adoption or a surrogacy and had things fall through. And so I can see how this would continue to hit you even in midlife when now friends are having grandbabies and you're feeling like you're missing out.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So oftentimes, like what happens with women is you feel like at the time when you decide, okay, I'm not going to go through any more infertility treatments, or you've realized, I've aged out and this is not going to happen, whatever the circumstance, over time, you start to feel better. You have these periods where you get hit with triggers. Sometimes, knowing they're coming, like Mother's Day, sometimes it's something that shows up on TV that like really hits you. And so it's normal to have those ups and downs, but also we tend to think, and others tend to think also, oh, now that you're in your 50s or certainly beyond, this is, you're past it. No, you're not, because now your friends are having grandchildren, as you've mentioned. And also as you start getting older, and I had clients even in their 30s start to feel these fears, you realize, okay, who's going to take care of me? Not that anybody ever has a child to be someone to take care of you.
Right. But you feel like, where's my tribe?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And it's not that people who are seniors who have children all have children who take care of them.
Right.
But, not all children are there for their aging parents. Right. But when you're in this vulnerable situation and you're realizing, I'm not going to have anyone, and that fear of growing alone really can take root. And so that's another thing that starts to weigh on women's minds, especially as they age, but even younger. So
what are some of the top tips that you work with your clients on to help manage? Because with life coaching, a lot of it is our thoughts and our feelings that create our actions, right? And the circumstance is still the same. You don't have children and you can't change that circumstance. So what are the top tips that you give your clients? How do you help them to kind of facilitate these scenarios?
Yeah. So typically we do work on thoughts and recognizing that that's creating our feelings, like you said. It doesn't mean that our thoughts are wrong. I mean, if you have someone who is child-free by choice, she's thinking, this is fabulous. Okay, but we're thinking, this sucks, right? Because we're thinking, I so dearly want a child. There's nothing wrong with our thoughts. It's just realizing, where our feelings are coming from.
Right.
And my tips are one is to sit with your feelings, because what often happens with uncomfortable feelings, we are getting constant messages that, negative feelings, negative thoughts, we need to push those away. But those negative emotions are human emotions. They are part of our human experience. When you push them away, when you pretend they're not there, they don't go away. They're still there. And they tend to come out in ways that are not in alignment with how we want to live, or destructive behaviors like
the buffering, right?
Yeah, over shopping, eating things
drinking too much alcohol.
Exactly. So if you don't feel those feelings, you start pushing them away and pretending, oh, I'm fine. And you're only going to end up in a worse situation. So my top tip is actually to feel your feelings, to know they are normal, and to realize that it's very uncomfortable because we're used to, let me get rid of this hurtful feeling. The uncomfortableness, is that a word? Uncomfortable feeling will go away. It will return again if you're triggered. My second tip is when you try to manage triggers, that doesn't mean try to avoid all triggers, because you can't. That's going to isolate.
Avoid all baby showers and all family events.
Yeah. Avoid all situations where you're going to be triggered means that you're going to be isolated. You're going to isolate yourself from family, friends, community. Sometimes sometimes it does mean not going to certain baby showers, not going to certain bridal showers. But there are ways to navigate the triggers, like having an ally ahead of time, someone who's going to be who will be by your side and be able to change the topic when someone starts asking, why don't you have children? Or when are you going to have children? What's going on with your fertility, your IVF, if they found out somehow.
So, get out my pelvis.
Yes, exactly. So make sure you have an ally, if possible, ahead of time, who can change the subject, or who can be like, all right, now let's go off to the side and, let's walk outside. You and I can take some time alone. So there are ways to manage triggers, and that is one way. And also what I recommend is really planning ahead. Like Mother's Day is coming up.
Maybe you're not going out to lunch on Mother's Day.
Right, exactly.
You're not watching the Hallmark channel.
Exactly. Stay off of social media.
Yeah.
Figure out, and if you have a mom that you want to spend time with, sometimes that's still painful.
Yeah.
Even if you have a great relationship. So, talk to her ahead of time. Say, Mom, this is what I'm going through. This is what I need from you. I want to spend time with you. But I'm also going to take the rest of the day to stay away from whatever. You don't have to take your mom out to lunch. Bring lunch into her, or make it for her. So it's planning ahead for those kinds of things. And, other holiday, Easter's coming up, Passover's coming up. This is April is a big month for kind of major holidays in Christianity, Judaism, and in Islam. So,
and then Mother's Day next month. I mean, we've got it all. Yeah.
Yeah. So know your audience. Know if you're invited to something for Easter, know who's going to be there, who's going to be, what Aunt Libby is going to. There's always that one relative who's going to ask you those things that they shouldn't, or say things. So plan ahead for those responses. My favorite response to any of these personal questions and comments is, that's personal. Most people, when you say that to them, will realize, okay, I need to back off.
Yeah.
There's the occasional person who doesn't get it and keeps going, but most people will be like, oh, you don't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
So I would just be armed, ready with that. Hey, that's personal. And be ready with a topic or two of conversation, like how you can direct the conversation to something else that everyone will be able to join in on.
Yeah. These are good practical tips. So tell my audience where they can find you.
So I am on social media. My life coaching practice is Path Onward, so pathonward.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Sorry, I'm forgetting the LinkedIn. And so they're all on LinkedIn. It's my name, Gail Miller, MD.
Mm-hmm.
On Instagram, it's Childless Path Onward. And then my name of the Facebook page is also Path Onward. I also do have a private Facebook group. I am very, very careful about who I let in because I want to keep this a safe
Mm-hmm.
where women can vent and feel supported and or even just stay quiet and lurk and feel supported and know that nobody in there is going to be making those inappropriate comments and questions or throwing judgment at you. So I'm really careful about screening who is allowed in so that it is a safe space.
I love that you've created this community for this particular woman. I mean, this is phenomenal. And, it's so often that we become our own savior. You become the help that you need.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you've done just that. In your day job, you help women with difficult pregnancies, with high-risk pregnancies, and it didn't happen for you in any way, shape, or form. And now you've created a support group for these women who find themselves in their same boat. So I think that that's just phenomenal. And Facebook is so great for these groups, these little niche groups.
Yeah.
I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so if they wanted to get into your Facebook group, would they just look up Path Onward, become a member of Path Onward?
So the private group is called When Being Childless Isn't by Choice.
Okay.
But if you just put in in the group thing, where in the search for group, Childless Not by Choice, my group is going to come up there. And also, so I don't have any of the registration information yet, but the day before Mother's Day, I will be doing a support group. It's not a lecture. It's just a place to come get support from other women. If somebody wants to be coached, that, it can be anonymous. We want people to kind of be on camera, but you don't have to be. So it can be anonymous, but it's just a place to kind of be the day before, be ready and be with other women who are going through the same thing. Yeah.
I love that because you're never alone.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how will they find that link? If somebody's like, oh, this is me, or this is perfect for my sister or whatever, how would they find that? Watch your social media. Will you get me that link as soon as you have it so I can share it with others?
Yeah. So both watch social media. As soon as I have it, I will get that to you. And then it will be on my website as well.
Okay, perfect.
So it'll be all over everything.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Well, it has been a pleasure, Dr. Miller. Thank you so much for joining Sky Women today.
Thank you.
Until next week. Yes, thank you. Until next week, be well. All right, Sky community, thank you for listening to another episode. This episode was sponsored by Sky Women's Health. As a reminder, we're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we help relieve back pain and pelvic pain in pregnancy and beyond. If you are pregnant and having pain and you feel like you have no reliable way to relieve it, look us up at skywomenshealth.com, request an appointment, and we'll call to get you scheduled. As a board-certified OB-GYN with a neuromusculoskeletal medicine fellowship, I help you realign with hands-on drug-free treatment and relieve pain on the spot without medication. We'll help you maintain these results through your pregnancy and postpartum period. Every pregnant person deserves this, and we are so excited to serve you. You can find us on our website, as mentioned, or on social at Sky Women's Health, or you can call the office at 817-915-9803. That's it for today. Until next week, be well.